Due to the sudden and rapid increase in ocean temperatures and the urgent nature of what that means for ocean health and the people who depend on it, we've just launched two new projects, one for corals and the other for mammals, fish, and birds, to track bleaching, deaths, and their health. Because the impact and scale of these really need to be tracked and shared in real time with all eyes on the ocean. So if you're a scientist, a professional or recreational ocean explorer, like sailing, fishing, supping, surfing, or walking the beach, you can help, even if everything looks great where you are today. When you log your ocean observations in the eOceans app of any animals in distress, dead, or if they're happy and healthy, we generate real-time maps and analysis that tell us all how the oceans are doing today. In this video, I'll give you a quick tour of the eOceans mobile app, how to log your observations, and the web app so you know that your data are going to good use today. And finally, how you can be an integral part of the Ocean Action Dialogue to protect and restore ocean health. Let's dive in. Okay, once you've downloaded the app, created and verified your account through your email, all the usual stuff to make sure you're in the right place, you can then open the app and log in. The first thing is to decide which species list you want to have on your phone for logging. So the default is the light list, which is a compressed list of all the ocean species. And to that light list, if you're an expert in any of these, for example, and need all the species, for example, if you are working in depth on corals, you might want to add the entire species list of Cnidaria. Then you can go all in and choose all species. But for now, we'll just stick with the light list because it's fast. Then it's going to log in and download the species list. This is important because eOceans for logging works offline. So when you're out at sea, out of cell phone and Wi-Fi data range, you can be logging. Okay, so now I'm over in my profile and I can see all of my observations. And I'll click on any one of these observations to show you a bit more about that observation and what an observation looks like after you've made it. So here's an observation. Here's all the information about it. The pencil is for me to edit the observation, and the image icon is for when I want to upload other images to the observation. So for example, if I'm scuba diving and I want to add photos from my underwater camera, I can upload there. And there's the date, the time, the location, all that stuff, the activity that I was doing. So if I was scuba diving and doing a coral reef survey with scuba diving or snorkeling, that activity would be in there. And then there's my observations that I made on this observation. So here I made birds, walkers, and a couple of dogs. I can see the abundance of those things at that time over on the far right-hand column. And then if I open the heart health, I can open that and you can see more information about those birds that I saw. I can say that they were observed and down here that they were flying. They were too far away for me to detect the species and I didn't have binoculars. But if I had the species, it would be better to have those. And then there's the environmental conditions that I recorded for that location. I recorded the cloud cover and the atmospheric haze. I kind of got in the habit of recording atmospheric haze during the fires, the wildfires and the smog that we were experiencing in the smoke. Then there's water quality conditions. If I was underwater and I came up from a scuba diving or a snorkel survey, then I could also have added water visibility and other measurements if I had some tools for those, like microplastics, turbidity, water level, conductivity, dissolved oxygen, pH. Okay, going back, the last part of my observation tells me which projects that single observation went to. And you can see that although my observations didn't have seals, turtles, or sharks, it still went to shark, e-shark, e-seahorse, e-sea turtle teams as zeros. And the zeros are really important for getting baselines, especially or changes through space or changes through time, so that you're getting all of those zeros. Okay, going back, now we have back to my observation. Let me show you a different type of observation. So that was a single. This is a track where you'll see this squiggly line next to the observation. Here's a track, and I can click on any one of these. I can open it up. And this top image was just a final image of the track. But here I can see that I made a whole bunch of observations on this pier along this walking path. And here's, just like in the singles, here's all of the observations. I can click on them and see which projects each of those observations went to and what was included. And again, I can add other images or edit it. Okay, another part of my profile is to click on the profile page, and that's where you'll see joined and owned. Those are the projects that I have joined or I'm owning, that I'm the project or principal investigator on. So these are the ones that are more smaller projects by invite only. So for example, the Orcas and Sailboats project or the Great Fiji Shark Count, where it's a smaller team. But if I slide on over here to the eOceans projects, that's where it's much more inclusive. Everyone's involved in these projects, and that's where the Heatwave projects are. So I'll click on one of them. One's for corals, one's for mammals, fish, and birds. So we have that one here. This is all the information that's about that project. So you'll see here, there's a bunch of tabs that are associated with that project. The location is global. Here's the observations. There aren't any yet because we just launched it. Management, that's around marine protected areas. If you had a marine protected area that you were tracking and you wanted to communicate what activities were and weren't allowed, but it's not really relevant to global projects. Discussion, that's where you can discuss the results. Comments, that's really important here because we really want people to be involved, everyone that's contributing to be involved in helping us understand the results that they're seeing. And we don't yet have the results tab in the mobile app, but it's in the web app. So I'll show you in a little bit what that looks like. But here again, let's look at the overview. Here's the objectives. So the objectives of this project are to unite the global community to collect mammal, fish, and bird observations in the ocean, including their presence and absence and their health condition, and to produce timely maps and analysis to understand this situation, this evolving situation, and possibly to mitigate future negative interactions. And a key part of this, which should be here, is the identification of hope spots and hope species. So areas and species that are not being impacted by these heat waves. Then there's the goals of the project, which you can read, and the activities. So here with this project, we're collecting data from all activities. In the corals, we're only interested in observations that happen below the surface. So those are only snorkeling and diving activities. And then we're interested in all mammal, fish, and bird species. Funding and acknowledgements, every project you should be aware of when you're contributing your observations, who is involved and engaged in leading that project. Okay, so now how do you make an observation? You click on the plus button at the bottom and there's single and track. So let's start with single. Here, I'm not out at sea, so I just have an observation of an image on my wall. And with that, I'm setting the scene. So it's going to grab the date and the time, and then it's going to grab the location. So I never need to write it down anymore. And when I'm inside the house, it takes a little bit of time, but there we go. The next thing is the species component of the observation. So here is a list of my recents. After you've carefully logged something, it will go into your recents. So when you come up from your dive, you take an image of this scene of the area, and then you say you were logging some elkhorn coral. And once it's in there, then I can say I'm logging on 10 colonies of elkhorn coral. And if I just saw them, I can move on to the humans parts if I want, or I can drill in deeper about the health of those coral and click on the health heart. Here I can report on every single one of those elkhorn coral, or I can just, for this situation, I'll just say all of them had the same appearances. And I can upload photos from my SLR or my underwater camera at this stage, or not at this stage, but after. And I can add, if I observed them and they were still alive, but let's say they had some infections, like they're diseased, or they have bleaching, or if you knew which type of disease, such as stony coral tissue loss disease, you can record it there. If there was any behaviors, you could add those also. Okay, so then we're moving on to the human dimension. So let's say there were 300 scuba divers on that site, scuba divers on the site, and there were 300 of them. And there were also some other things like some plastics, a plastic bag. Okay, that's the human dimension. Then there was what activity was I doing? So I was not swimming, but I was snorkeling or scuba diving. So I will add scuba diving to my observation, saying that's my activity. If I want to, I can add the water conditions like the water visibility and any other information that I want about the site. And I can add some field notes and I can showcase it. Like I mentioned, that puts it into my feed so that my followers get notified of this interesting observation, or it just stays in my profile and save. But I'm going to discard so it doesn't become part of my observation. Okay, so now let's just quickly show what the track looks like. So you click on track. You are now, instead of doing a scuba dive, you're now whale watching and you have binoculars. And you could say even what type of boat. So let's say you're out on a Zodiac. You can say you're out on a Zodiac and you're whale watching and you've got binoculars. Okay, then you're going along your way and you click on an observation. You can again use the humans or the species. So if you saw a humpback whale, you can add that there and you can add the number because again, this is your recents, and you can also add those. You observe them and they're alive. They're all females. You can also, again, don't forget, you can choose to log them all separately if you chose. And you can add any markings or injuries like tags, for example. And you can add any behaviors. So if they're all feeding, then you can do that. And so everything looks fine with the humpback whales compared to the corals here in this example. And then when you've finished the track, you can press stop and it will go through. You can add a final image and check out all your observations. That's where you can showcase and save activity. But for now, I'm going to discard so that it doesn't end up in my data set. Okay, so now you've logged data in the mobile app and you want to see what the results look like. For that, you can pop on over to the eOceans web application, which is found at eoceans.app. There you can log in, and once you log in, you'll see your dashboard. And that's where you have tools to find all your observations and your projects and more. But here, just when you're landing, you'll see your observations and trends in your own observations, as well as the global observations. So, and these are all interactive maps or graphs. So over here, we're going to click on Teams because here we're interested in the Heatwaves projects. So I really want you to understand that when you log data out at sea, it comes in and it goes to this project. So here is the Heatwaves Impacts projects. And just like in the mobile app, you'll see the project all the project information. And here with the addition of this awesome tab, which doesn't actually have data yet, but here if you click on this, once there are data, you will have results, including maps and trends through space and time. And to give you some inspiration of what that will look like, I'll head back over to my projects and I will search on Fiji to show you the Great Fiji shark count data because there's quite a lot of data there. And here we will go to results and generate results. And the great thing about eShark and Great Fiji Shark Count is that they're working together. So when people provide data to eShark, if you're in Fiji, it also is going to the Great Fiji Shark Count. But all right, so here the first thing you'll see is a map with all the species diversity and distributions. And then you can also look at the activities that provided those data. So you can see that it's mostly snorkeling and scuba diving. This project had nearly 30,000 dives on nearly 600 sites and produced 146,000 shark observations, I believe, over a 4-year period. And here we can, let's go back up to the species and click that back on so we can look at more ecological information. So here we can see that they're mostly let's see, white tip reef sharks, black tip reef sharks, and bull sharks. But if this was corals in the coral project, it would show you the diversity of corals. And eventually these maps will also show you the status of them. So if there's bleaching, it will show up on top of these circles so that you can start to look at a global distribution and a regional distribution of bleaching and of diseases and so on. And then there's trends through space and through time. So that's just a quick overview of what the projects will look like. But just to show that when you're logging corals and that are bleaching, or mammals that are stranding, or fish that are gasping, or birds that are dead, all those data come in here, and the trends can be found here. Now that you've learned that all your ocean observations are important and that it's easy to log them in the eOceans app, and how your data don't just get put in a repository to maybe be used later, and that they're actually being analyzed today and making a real difference in real time. It's important to note that eOceans takes an ethical approach to data sharing, where data contributors, that's you, own your data and decide how your data can be used. For the projects you contribute to by joining, you can help it interpret the results and are enabled to facilitate knowledge distribution and empowered to be an integral part of the ocean action dialogue. We do not sell advertisements, and to protect species, places, and people, we do not make your data open access or sell your data. Remember, eOceans moves with you. It is a platform. So once you've joined a project, eOceans decides which projects you want to share with as you move around the world. This way, as you move, you can log in any species, human value, pollution, or issue in real time, and eOceans does the rest. There's no need for multiple apps to feed different observations to different projects or organizations for different species and locations. The platform can work for any species, pollution event, policy, and so on. So each of your observations get repeatedly reused for many different purposes. This way, we are helping to maximize the impact you have with minimal time and effort. And we can set common goals for ocean health and wealth and track our success. That way, we can all stay focused on what matters. That's the animals, ecosystems, and people, not the logistics of data sharing, ownership, cleaning, and analysis. I'm Dr. Christine Wardpage. I'm a marine scientist, lead scientist on many of the projects inside of eOceans, like eShark, eManta, and the Marine Heatwaves projects. And I'm the founder of eOceans. And I look forward to collaborating with you in the platform because your observations matter. Please download the app from the links below and subscribe to our channel to learn more as we unite people around the world to track and act for our ocean. eOceans, for the ocean, for us.